I'd like to officially welcome everyone to the Brain 202, fine-tuning and editing your brain. My name is Shelley Haydock, and I'm co-hosting with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, today's going to be a great session. There's a lot to cover in terms of how to edit, garden, and grow your brain. We're going to keep it fairly informal today because we're just diving in, as we discussed a little earlier in our pre-broadcast, just tips and tricks for how to get started. A lot of people create a brain and they don't realize how flexible it is to change, grow, and evolve, and all the possibilities there really are for information categorization. So we're going to cover a lot of different possibilities for what's going to work best for your particular application. Utilize our Q&A if you have a specific area of gardening in your brain you're interested in, maybe creating some link types or thought types. Let us know. We'll try and pivot to demo a lot of what is relevant to you. And with that, we're going to get started. But before I do, Matt, any words of wisdom on fine-tuning and editing brains just in general before we kick things off?
I always like to say, don't worry about making a mistake in your brain. Already the question came in about having multiple thoughts with the same name. We'll talk about that. How can you fix it? How can you go back and edit it? Just because you put it in your brain doesn't mean it's absolutely 100% permanent. You don't need to delete that content and reinvent the wheel or recreate it in a different brain. There's ways to copy and paste and edit and modify. We'll share all of those with you today.
All right, and with that, I'm just going to close a few Zoom windows, not close anything. I want to start off with talking a little bit about information architecture and some of the strategies that you can actually use for organizing your brain. So pieces of information in the brain, just to level set, are of course called thoughts, and a thought can represent any type of digital information. And clicking on a thought is going to trigger all related pieces of information. So every time I click on a thought, it's going to bring that item to the center, and thoughts below it are child thoughts. But where things get interesting in the brain is I can actually come in and create multiple parents for a particular thought. So if I want to give this another parent thought, I can do that. I can simply create another parent on maybe this belongs to personalization as well, and make that connection. And now what I can do is move from just a hierarchical categorization to something that we call a network. And in this case, I'm just making a lot of random connections in my presentation brain, just to show you how easy it is to move beyond a hierarchy and a network. So in terms of what that means is you can think of a hierarchy as something similar to a file folder system, where you're drilling down deeper into a subcategory set. And a lot of people love the brain for its associative connections, and that's what we're known for. You also do need to create some level of subcategorization and hierarchy in your brain. So this particular brain, and I'm actually just going to unlink a few things here since we're in the 202 and we're talking about editing. I'm going to undo what I just did here because I just put those in for conversational purposes, how you can change and evolve. And a good starting point is to think about what type of data structure you want for your brain. Do you want a network where there's a lot of connections, a lot of thought, a lot of subcategories, or do you want to create more hierarchical category type? And there's different various reasons you might do both. So if we're talking about just hierarchical data models, you can think about different use cases. So for instance, an organizational chart where you're showing executive, director, manager is somewhat hierarchical. But where you might want to come in and create the relational associations is to products, because often an executive is working on something in another department. So these types of hierarchical relationships that seem very straightforward at first, especially when you're dealing with business process maps and real world relations, aren't really that simple. And of course, if you're trying to do a basic file folder system or organize files, you can also start with category and subcategory. But again, once you do that, what's really cool is moving really quickly into what we call the networked model, where you can have a many-to-many relationship. So something, if you think of your company intranet or your own personal file folder system, something that may be on the bottom. I have a client management brain I'm going to get to. I might have my Time Warner business presentation in that particular folder, but I might also want it in a folder about the knowledge management services we're providing. How do I have that particular file in two different places? Yes, I can create a shortcut in my file folder directory, but I can't really connect it to the way I logically think about it in my head or the way I need to use it in the real world. And that's where the brain's associative connections come in, and what we like to think of as the network data model, where just to give you some examples of a network data model, actually, I like to think of it more in terms of lots of network strategies. If you think of a social network where you've got many different people that you're connected to, and maybe more of a nonlinear way than a classic org chart, business connections is a good example. A lot of our IT managers for network management love that they can visualize all their applications and servers, and those aren't necessarily linear because you've got data feeding into all different types of applications. So that's sort of just a high level, the difference between a network and a hierarchy. And one of the nice things about the brain is you don't have to decide. A lot of you, if you like the control of seeing that nice, a more formalized taxonomy where you've got category, subcategory, that's fabulous. That's going to be your parent-child relationship. And to be honest, you kind of need a bit of that just to provide a starting point, sort of the Archimedean structure of your brain, if you will. But then the great thing is you don't have to be confined to that like you would be in a folder system. You can make these connections, these hyperlinks, and the brain will actually create hyperlinks for you in your notes as well. So it can get really interesting. So just to kind of give you a level of understanding of that, the other thing you might want to think about when you're building your brain is breadth versus depth. And that is how many children you want below your thoughts. So like, for instance, if you go to Jerry Mikulski's brain, it's available on our applications page and we can pull it up. He has, my goodness, I don't even know, like, I think sometimes 100 thoughts under one particular thought. He likes to kind of, when you click on a thought, all that stuff just blows up, have a nice level of thoughts right below, so you can scroll. And so some people would rather not create that extra level of category and maybe just add some thought type. So that's the way to think of how you want to design your brain in terms of the breadth or depth between your categories. And then just some other interesting things that we're going to cover as well. That's the categories versus types aspect of it. So if you want to create a subcategory, if you want to create a thought type or a tag, that's another way to organize information. And then personalization, your font size, your wallpaper, your icons, even your display layout, for instance, can all be changed. And I don't know if this is exactly editing your brain, but it sure does affect your overall look. If I'm not using my notes that often, I might want to put my brain above. I can actually go into options, and I decided to start out with this yellow because I was feeling in a bright mood. But if I want to just go ahead and change this brain theme to, let's go to maybe the solid gray and stick with that. I can go ahead and make that change. You can see just with a couple changes in terms of just the preferences, what kind of look I've given to this. And then I can clean this area up by drag and drop. So let me just, my webcam's actually getting in the way of my brain here. So I'm going to move my brain over here a little bit here. And I'm going to move to another brain called eSolutions now. So with this particular brain, this is a brain that I've built to help manage different clients. So when I click on any area in this brain, of course, this area comes to the center, and you can see that I've got people connected to clients. And this is an example of using both thought types as well as the parent-child relationship to organize a structure. So my thought type that I have in this particular brain is executive. So if I want to have any new person start in the company, maybe I'm hiring a new person named Hank Jones. I can go ahead and create that person, but I can also go ahead and type them as a director, executive, or manager. So in this case, I'm going to put them in as an executive reporting directly to Barbara Powers and hit enter. And so now I've just created a new person and I've added their thought type right in the knowledge base. So that's a level of categorization that you can do with type. And in addition to type, we can also create tags for this person. So now I'm going to move beyond kind of the hierarchy of people and connect this person. So I'm going to connect Hank to a new company I have working with. Let's just go ahead and connect them to BTech Integrations. He might be overseeing that particular client. And so now I have a connection. So as I'm working on all the projects that I might have with BTech integration, Hank is right there as a jump thought. And from there, I can go ahead and create multiple clients. So maybe we're doing knowledge management consulting. And we're helping them with their intranet application. So I just created two thoughts under this particular client. One of the things I noticed is that this client doesn't have an icon. I can come into this area here and choose to capture an image, or I can set a stock icon for that particular client. In this case, they do mobile applications. So I'm going to give them this icon. You can see how I'm starting to build a category structure and a style for this particular client. But my clients area actually needs a little work. You can see that I've got a few other clients just hanging out at the top. I've got Apply Software, BTech Integrations, ChipMax, and Microsoft, all these clients. And then I also have certain clients that I can get to by service type, by industry, and my top 5. And this is an example of how you can kind of organize your information under many different dimensions as well to get to that same piece of information. So for instance, if I want to go into service type, and I mentioned that I'm doing some other knowledge management consulting for BTech, I can go ahead and drag BTech to my particular knowledge management services category. And now you can see I have that connected to the project that I'm working on with Disney, which is an employee benefits project. And that is under my knowledge management. And I also might want to link Disney under my media entertainment and my travel and leisure. So Disney is actually existing in multiple areas. Now, in this particular example, I have a few other clients or stragglers that I can see that I want to categorize by industry. So my industries right now are that I service my clients are financial services, manufacturing, media entertainment, nonprofit, retail services, communication, transitive logics. Oh, that is actually a company. So let me move that back up here. And it looks like I need another industry for all my technology clients. So I'm going to call this technology companies. So I just created a new category called technology companies to clean up all of these free-floating companies I have in my clients area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give this an icon. So I can set the icon again, and let me just go ahead and add this in. And now what I can do is actually select, if I go back up to clients, I've just sort of been adding my clients in as they come, but I'm going to hold down my control key and select Microsoft, Townsend, Transitive Logics, Apply Software, and BTech Integrations, all 5 of those are actually tech clients. I actually want to move those under my technology industry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually right click on my selection box, and I'm going to go ahead and link as children. Now I can make them parents or jumps. So for instance, if I wanted them all jumps, I could do that, but I can, if I didn't like the way that looked, I do want them as children as categories below. I can go ahead and do that. Now I still have them selected. So I actually want to move them. So I've got them under technology companies. I now don't want them up here. I want to clean this area up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my selection box and I'm going to unlink them. So now what you can see what's happened is I've cleaned this up a little bit more. I now, oh, and there's one more company, Chipmax. So that's okay. I can go back over here. I can also drag to move if I want to move Chipmax there. And then I actually want to put Chipmax under technology companies, and I can drag that below. So you can see that I've now changed the structure of this particular area in my brain. Now, there's other things that I could do to make this look a little more interesting in my client management area. I have this little area called navigation by industry and by service type, but I find that I don't really need this little subheading. I'd rather see all the vertical industries that we're servicing right at the top. So I actually want to get rid of this, what we call intervening thoughts. So I'm going to actually control click on the gate, which actually brings all my thoughts into that selection box again. And I'm going to come back to clients. And now I've got a group of thoughts here. I'm going to link them directly under clients. So let me just go ahead and link. And now I'm actually going to go ahead and forget industry and then close this. And so now what you can see is I've just got all my industry clients right at the top, and then maybe service is going to go over here because we don't do stuff by service. And my top 5 clients, I might want to move that over here, and I just want to call this client vectors. So you can see how I've changed and evolved this. Now I could take this a step further in terms of uncategorizing things and showing stuff. If I actually want to go ahead and rather than have this category thought calling these companies tech companies, I can create a thought type for a tech company. So let me go up to, I could actually even go up to types here and create a thought type, or I can go ahead and just do that on the thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead here and select this top, and I'm going to call this technology company. So that's my type. I'm going to create that particular type, and I can come in here and select and add all kinds of new areas. Let me just go ahead and create let me do a new type here. And now I've got my new type called tech company. And let me just correct the spelling there. And with tech company, I might want to change the color. So in this case, I might want to give that a green look. And I also might want to give an icon to this particular thought type that I'm creating. So let me create this icon here. And so now what I can do is I can go to all my technology companies and control click, or I can hold down and control click the gate to get them all. And now that I've got them all selected, I can come in here and you set a thought type of tech company. And so now what I've done is rather than just categorizing them as technology companies, I've given them sort of a visual look and feel. So I can actually now sunset this particular category and move these up if I want to do that. And so I'm going to put these right under clients. So I'm going to link under client sectors here. And now I'm doing the opposite. I've decided I want a wider category structure. I'm going to actually get rid of this thought now by selecting to forget it. And this gives you a different look here. So rather than what we started off with earlier was the by industry, by category, and really only 3 thoughts, to now moving to a way of organizing where I have more immediate instances of that particular company on my screen, but I'm sort of separating them by thought type. So these are just different ways. We started talking about depth versus breadth, where you can further organize things, or you can get rid of an organization structure if you find it too linear. And then just to add to that, of course, you can see that I've got my pins on the top. So if I'm using this particular client, let's say B Tech integrations a lot, I also want to create a pin. So regardless of where I am in my brain, if I'm in marketing or I'm thinking about PR or marketing, and that client calls me, of course, I can always use the search to get to them real quick, but I can also just click on that pin and I'm back to that area in my brain. So that's just a little preview in terms of how you can use your brain to mass select and really change and grow an area, either by adding categories or getting rid of categories, and also organizing with type.
And I quickly add something into my brain. And over time, it's become a little bit cluttered. If I need to look up Laura's phone number here, I don't have my thoughts in alphabetical order in this area of my brain. So I could do that. I can right click on the background, and this question actually came up in the question and answer panel. There are different ways to organize groups of thoughts, and you can play around with this and really find whatever is going to work best for you. As you can see, I'm arranging my thoughts by the date they've been activated. So, for example, if I click on things that I'm reading, there's my category for reading. I come back to personal life. Reading goes up to the top of that list. It's an option for you, and you can play around with this to find out whatever's going to work best for you. I'm going to right click and organize or arrange my thoughts by name. So now they're alphabetical. Great. And I can go straight into the L's. There's Laura. I can click and look up Laura's number. So that's just a minor adjustment that you can do in a brain that's become very large, and find what is going to help you navigate through that brain with the greatest ease. I am going to now use some of the tricks that Shelly has shared with us to clean this area of my brain up. So let's give it a little screen real estate. Now I can at least see all the thoughts at one time. And I'm going to start with intervening thoughts. You saw Shelly was dragging thoughts, from one thought to another to recategorize, reorganize. You don't need to delete the thought and recreate it. I can simply click and drag and create a thought for people. I'll create a thought for my hobbies. And I'm using the semicolon. I share this in the Brain 101. It's a great trick to create multiple thoughts very quickly. An area for my house. I've got a lot of house modifications and renovation information, and another category for my health. So these are the 4 main categories of my personal life. And I am going to click on one of those. So people, for example, and I can quickly click and drag all the people that I see underneath my people thought. So there's August, and I'll just simply, there's Cher and Dad. So very, very quickly, I'm just moving these people. Edgar Allan Poe, yeah, he's people, but it's actually, he's not a person that in my personal life, he's more of a celebrity. So he's going to go into a different category. I'll scroll down and continue cleaning this up. Kids, there's Laura and my mom. And let's see if I have a few more. And there's Shelly and Spencer and Tom. Great. So a lot of people, it looks like I'll control click on the gate to get a quick count. 16 thoughts that I've moved over into that people category. But I still have a lot of content here. So I still need to do some more cleaning. I'm going to go into that hobbies area. And I'm going to use another trick to move these quickly. Shelly shared this with us earlier as well. Control click. So animals in nature, baseball, bathrooms, that's house, books, camping. I'm going to put that in travel, diving, home renovations, reading. So Edgar Allan Poe, I'll move him there. Food, that's health, furniture, gardening, and hiking, that's travel, more house stuff, iTunes, that's under music. I'll move that over. House, martial arts, Minnesota camping is travel. I'll scroll down. Now I'm holding down. So just for clarity, I'm holding down the control key. This is the command key. If you are on a Mac, you would command click. So again, woodworking, there's some music, yoga, the Beatles, tennis, states, that's really travel, softball, Shakespeare. And we've got just a few more to select. I'm control clicking, gardening, the more health stuff. Here's a bunch of music things. That is a hobby. And great. I think I've made my selection. I'll start with that. I've selected 26 thoughts and I go to that hobbies thought. And Shelly did the exact same thing that I'm doing here. First, I connect, and then I go back and remove links. The reason for that is if I had removed all of these, and then I get sidetracked, I get a phone call, I got to jump into another brain or whatever, my computer goes to sleep, I close the brain application, I've unlinked all these thoughts, I haven't deleted them, they would be floating out there in my brain, but it would take a little bit of extra work to recreate or fix that problem. So first, we navigate to the desired thought. I right click in the selection box and I am going to link them as children of hobbies. And I go back to personal life. I make personal life the active thought. And so when I right click and say unlink, what am I unlinking them from? I'm not unlinking them from the entire brain. I'm unlinking them from personal life. So unlink selection. And now I can close my selection box. I now have just 2 columns. So I've really quickly cleaned this area of my brain up. So just 2 more fixes to do. Oh, I don't need to create a new thought. I'll hit escape. I already did that. Health. So really quickly, health, I'll say food and diet goes under there. Hiking goes under there. And if I scroll down, I thought I had some other health things. Well, if not, I will find, health status. And that looks good. And now I'll go to my travel area. Did I create travel? I did not. I created, house. So I'll create, go to my house thought. And let's just finish this project up. So I've got my loan for renovations, kitchen renovations, and I think that should, renovations, there we go. And travel, I actually want to create in a different area under hobbies. So I'm going to go to hobbies and create a thought for travel. And back into personal life. And let's airlines, control click, back to the control click. Camping is travel. I've got a few more home things to clean up. There's Glacier, Hollywood Bowl is travel, hotels, New York, Paris, parks that I like to go to, different states I like to see, vacation ideas, and Disney Concert Hall. And I go back to that travel thought in my past thought list, right click, link as children, and back up to personal life, right click, and unlink selection. And there's just a few that I missed under house repairs, my garage, DIY home improvements, and bathroom renovations. Done. We started this area of the brain with so many thoughts they didn't fit on the screen at one time. In fact, I took a screenshot really quickly. Here's how we started, and I've only been demoing for 5 minutes. This is what the brain looked like, and this is where we are now. I haven't made it harder to get to these thoughts. I can still find them in the search. They're just one extra click away. I had this conversation recently with some colleagues here at the Brain. Everything in the brain is linked to me. Here's my own personal brain, and I demo this brain quite often, and I quite often share how many thoughts are in this brain. The last time I did a 202, I watched the recording, and there were 7,000 thoughts in this brain. But if I click on my real brain that I use on a daily basis for recreation, if I click on File and go into Statistics, I can see that I have 7,475 thoughts in this brain. So I've added close to 500 thoughts in this brain over the course of the past about 6 or 7 months. So I'm kind of adding 500 thoughts or 600 thoughts a year is sort of, the average. And I'm sure that ebbs and flows a bit, but more data is always coming in. And like I said, everything in this brain could be linked to me. One thought, me, and 7,000 thoughts down below, that wouldn't be useful. So these intervening subcategories, whoops, wrong brain, there we go, are really the way to go. It's a great way to quickly clean up a brain. There's another option that we have, and those are those thought types and tags. Now, this is manageable. I don't need to create an intervening category. I did for travel, so that's great. So I can get into all my travel thoughts. But let's say I just want to create, I've got a thought type already created, I believe, for sports. I'll start typing it in. There it is, sports. If I didn't have it, I could create it very quickly. So I do have the thought type for sports. So once again, I am going to control click on some thoughts. Diving, baseball, gardening is not a sport, martial arts, and softball. I love softball, tennis, woodworking is not a sport. I'll call yoga a sport. Great. I've selected those individual thoughts, as you can see, in 4 different columns. And I right click and I say, make all of these a sport. So I right click in the selection box and set the thought type to sport. And sport is showing up. Thought types. I thought I saw the thought type sport. Oh, it's I've got a little arrow down at the bottom. So I've got more thoughts in this brain. This is one of my sample brains, more thoughts than I thought. There we go. Sports. So I make them all sports. And if I right click, let's go back to that organizing thoughts, right click, arrange thoughts by thought type. They're still alphabetical, but first it looks at thought types and groups all of them together. And then it goes to alphabetical within those subcategories, those groups. So baseball, diving, martial arts, those all fall into sports and they appear there. If I had another subcategory, let's say all of my music, I wanted music specifically in its own category. Let's see if I have the music thought type. I'll just type it in. No, so let's go ahead and create it. Music. This is a new thought type. I can click to open up the thought properties. I want all of my music thought types to have a nice sort of soft red background. And I want to give it an icon. The Brain has an icon library of over 2,000 icons. I'll do a search for something related to music. And there we go. I like the little violin there. So all of my music thought types, if they don't already have an icon associated with them or a color associated with them, they'll inherit this thought type once that's been assigned. So I go back to my hobbies and I'm back into control clicking, concerts, music lessons, music services. Do I have anything else? Yahoo Music. There we go. The Beatles. That looks good. I'll right click and set those thought types as music. So I'm going to scroll down. I think that was, there it is, music. So let's talk really quickly. Oh, and I gave it a red background. That's the same as sports. I can fix that. Let's go to the music thought type and let's change music to a yellow background. It's good to make mistakes. You can see how quickly you can fix them. So there, I now have all of my hobbies organized, music clearly visible, my sports clearly visible. I can continue on and in some areas keep those large clusters of thoughts, but just simply assign them a thought type with a color code to make it stand out and easily clean those areas up. Let's talk a little bit about crosslinks. Now, Shelley showed some of this as well. I'm going to go into, let's go into travel. I think Shelley said something about Disney, and I thought, oh, I've got a Disney thought. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Disney falls under travel. Let's got two thought tags. We'll talk about thought tags next. But Disney Concert Hall is in California. So I'm going to create a parent thought for California. Notice I just type in CA. It shows all thoughts in this brain that start with CA, CAL. There's California. I already have that existing thought. I can double click and link to that thought. It's also a vacation idea. So if I have a thought for vacation ideas, I can double click and link to that. So I can clearly see I've got more context. Walt Disney Concert Hall. It's a travel destination. It's one of my personal vacation ideas for my family. Falls under California. So if I'm going to be working in, Los Angeles, I do work in Los Angeles. It's very easy and attainable for me to get there, but I'm reminded that tickets are quite expensive to go there. So more context is being applied by organizing the thoughts in this way. Let's talk about those thought tags because you can see it's sort of a back burner idea. I've always wanted to bring my family there. Tickets are a bit expensive. Tags add additional context to the thoughts. Now, someone specifically had a question about a product, and a product has all of these different attributes such as size, color, style, model. Tags are one way that you can do that. There's another way you can do that with the comma trick. I'm going to show that next. But first, let's talk about tags. I've got another tag here for, we'll say state parks. Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is, it's in Kentucky. I think I want Kentucky to be the parent thought. I'll just click and drag and change that. And I don't have much data here yet, but let's say I've got family that lives in the Midwest. We're going to be traveling. We're going to be driving through Kentucky. Let's go to Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is an inexpensive option while we're already there. We might as well check that off of our national parks bucket list. So I'm going to create a tag for inexpensive. I have a tag for high cost. Let's create a new tag for low cost. So low cost items, again, I can give it a little icon change if I'd like. So select stock icon. I'll say money. I gotta select it first. So let's see if I can find a low cost money tag. I don't see an arrow pointing down, but I'm saving money. So I'm holding on to my bucks. I'll use that icon and I'll go to Mammoth Cave and open up the thought properties where I can color code, change this. I want to apply a tag of low cost. And let's scroll down our list. There it is, low cost. Now notice low cost and high cost, they're sort of related. I'm referring to, the price of doing something, but they're separate in my list of tags. I had this problem when I was looking at that long list of thought types. They're in different areas. Sometimes I want to group them together. You can see time frames, 6-month, back burner, something that's currently happening right now, or it's urgent. It needs to be happening soon. I group those together under my time frame category. Let's create a new tag. I'm going to tag this as low cost. So that's great. Where'd it go? There it is, low cost. So it's tagged as low cost. But now let's group low cost and high cost together. Maybe in the future, I might create something medium cost or free. So I'll just say price. So I have a new tag called price, and underneath price is going to be my high cost items and my low cost items. So I'm creating tags as a child thought of another tag. And what does that do? It nests the tags for you in your drop-down menus. So low cost. Great. Now, when I go to my tag list, I can go and look at all of my different pricing options, high cost and low cost. They're not peppered throughout the structure here. And I can even create subcategories beyond there. Great way to keep your tag lists and your thought types sort of condensed. And if I create a new one, let me do this. Before I get into that comma trick, free is going to be another cost item. But that gets created as a thought, not a thought type. It's like what we call a native thought. I can right click on this and say convert to a type or tag. I want this to be a tag. Okay. So there is free. And when I go to my list of tags, you can see I've got 3 different sub tags underneath the pricing category. So let's go ahead and talk about those commas. And Daniel, I think it was, I'm going to use your specific example. I'm going to go into my business and I'm going to be keeping track of all of my products that I am creating for my business. Now, I'm going to save a lot of time here and just use some made up names. I've got my product called the widget and the thing and the other. You know, all of our different products, the thing, the other, the widget, they're all going to have invoices for my clients. So I'm going to say comma invoices for my thing. Under widget, I'm going to have invoices, comma invoices. I should have probably used this as the example. And under other, I'm going to have other invoices. So comma invoices. And under categories, I am going to have my invoices. This also answers another question about having similar thought names in the brain. Commas can help to clarify that. So I've got my other invoices, my widget invoices, whoops, my widget invoices, there we go, and my thing invoices. So this hopefully clarifies it for you. I've got other thing and widget invoices, but also for my categories, other invoices, thing, invoices. And if I do a search for invoices, I don't just see invoices showing up over and over again. I see widget invoices, thing invoices, other invoices. So it clarifies that content for you. That is the comma trick, a really, really great, more advanced feature that can be utilized to clarify thought names as you're creating a brain. The next thing I want to get into, we got into thought types, thought tags. You can also have link types. Links can be defined within your brain. You know, I've got a friend that I go scuba diving with. I think his name is Dan. There's Dan Brown. So let's say Dan Brown and I are getting ready to, he falls under dive partners. So let's say we're going to be planning a scuba trip. And I'm keeping track of all of the different things happening with the scuba trip. And maybe Shelly is going scuba diving with us as well. And so is Spencer. So those are all of my different dive partners. And again, there's a lot of moving parts. We've got to make sure we've got the gear, the reservations, and so forth. So I'm going to create a thing called a dive event that I'm going to with my friends. And this dive event, we're going to be keeping track of the gear. We need our reservations. And we need food. And I guess we might need, let's just say our hotel. Okay. Well, Spencer is in charge of booking the hotel. So I'm going to link Spencer to hotel. And I'm going to clarify that Spencer is booking. So I clicked on the link between Spencer and hotel, and that opens up a thought properties window. And so therefore, when I look at Spencer, I can see Spencer is booking the hotel. Spencer's booking the hotel, but he's going to double check our gear. So once again, I've linked him and I click, and to open up the thought properties, double check. But in charge of the gear, very important, is Shelly. Shelly is in charge. So when I'm planning out this diving event, and let's say this is our 2024 diving event, I can clearly see, all right, let's talk about the gear. Shelly, you were in charge of the gear. Spencer, you were in charge of double checking. Was everything there? Did it all look good? If it all looks good, Shelly's going to be in charge of the gear for 2025. Maybe Spencer was like, I'm sort of new to this. I think everything was double checked. So next year, Spencer is not going to be in charge of double checking. That's going to be Dan Brown or another friend that goes along with us. But I'll be able to see who has what relationship with another piece of information. So the gear is just the gear. I'm going to have a long list in the notes of what we're bringing. The dive event and the outline and the dates and so forth, that'll be on that thought. Shelly's thought has a phone number and her contact information, but her relationship with the gear for our 2024 dive event is that she is going to be in charge of that content. Links add a wonderful layer of additional context to all the information. And you can even make these directional as well. So let's play around with that really quickly. I'm going to say this is a directional link. Shelly is in charge of the gear, period, the end. Directional links can provide sort of a flow chart. The question came up about Gantt charts and things like that. One component affects another component in a certain way, but it doesn't go the opposite direction. So you can apply these directional, and in some scenarios, you can even apply one-way links. So as I can see, anytime I come to the Shelly thought, I know that Shelly is in charge of gear for our dive event. However, if I go to dive events and I take a look at, well, Shelly's already there, and let's unlink Shelly from dive partners, and that'll make this work. So if she's already there, dive partners, dive event, and I take a look at the gear, notice that Shelly is not appearing on the screen. It's a one-way link. I only see that link when I come in from Shelly's thought. When I'm on the gear thought itself, I just want to look at the gear. I don't need a reference back to Shelly. But when I'm talking with Shelly, I want to make sure that she took care of that particular project. So many different ways those one-way links can be used as well. And now finally, we're going to get into importing and exporting. These questions came up a lot. I see Shelly's got her hands full with a lot of import and export questions. So let's dive right in. Yes, you can certainly import data into the brain. You can export data out of the brain. You can merge brains together and you can segment brains apart. So that's a very important component of today's webinar. So first, with importing, I have a thought here for Edgar Allan Poe. And I'll share this with you too. The brain has cross brain searching. So I do a search for Edgar. I find wherever Edgar appears in this brain, wherever Edgar appears in other brains, whether it's in the notes or the thought name. So there's Edgar Atheling, an older king of England, Edgar Mitchell, an astronaut, and so forth. So anytime Edgar appears in any brain that I have access to, it's going to appear in my drop-down list. I'm going to the Edgar Allan Poe thought in this brain, and I happen to have an outline of maybe a book of Edgar Allan's life that I'm working on. Here it is in Notepad. There it is. Opened up on another monitor. There we go. So that opened up on another monitor. This is a tab delineated list, but I want to share with you, pay very close attention right here at the top. I've got a pipe symbol, favorite author. I've got a dash with a quote that I really like from Edgar Allan Poe. So lovely was the loneliness of the lost lake. I love that quote. And I got a little plus sign with a web link in it. So that is going to add some additional content to the import I'm about to do. This is a tab delineated list. This is the only import I'm going to do today. There are many other import options available. File and folders. This one is a little bit more advanced because of the structure that you can give to your data. And today's all about advanced features of the brain. So I'm going to import this file into my brain. I click on File and Import. You have an option to import something as a new brain starting from scratch. I'm going to merge this content with this brain. I'm going to select a text outline and I select the file on my desktop. There it is, Edgar Allan Poe. I'll open that and it reviews, scans, make sure it's a valid format. Yes, I do want to import. And okay. There we go, Edgar Allan Poe. And it actually recognized, hey, there's already a thought. And I selected the option. I should have showed that to you. It was saying, hey, there's already some content for Edgar Allan Poe in this brain. I said, just create a duplicate. So we have a new thought called Edgar Allan Poe. The quote that I love that showed up as a note. Remember I said favorite author with the pipe symbol. That's the title of this on this particular thought. And then that structure down below, all about his life and career, those subcategories, selected works, tales that he's written, and so forth. Every tab is a new layer. When you tab over, that's a new layer of thought, child thoughts underneath the thought right above. So some great options for importing data into the brain. Let's talk about exporting. I am going to control click on Edgar Allan Poe. And I'm going to click on File, Select Related Thoughts. No, excuse me, Edit, Select Related Thoughts. There it is. I can go 14 generations away from this thought. That's an option. Child word, up parents, jump thoughts. But if I select this content, it all gets added into my selection box. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy as a text outline and paste it into a document that I need to turn in. I'm going to copy them and paste them into another brain. That's the question that came up earlier. How do I take a section of a brain that I really like, but create a smaller topic specific brain? I've just copied these thoughts and now I'll say File, Create Brain. I'll just call the brain called Ed. Here's my Ed brain. I right click and I paste those 27 thoughts and it brought everything. It thought there was options there to include thought types, tags, but the file attachments are there. All of the notes that you have for that thought all were imported into this brain. You can also back up a brain. Click on File and Back Up to Brain Archive, makes a BRZ of the entire brain structure. They're password protected to your account. There is a radio button if you want to allow anyone to extract this BRZ you're going to make. So I can zip this into a BRZ, send it to another user. They create another brain and import that BRZ into their brain. So that's the process for merging two brains together. It starts with one brain has to become a BRZ. Create that BRZ and you can import that brain into another brain. That's how we merge. Let's talk a little bit more about export though. I'm going to jump into a completely different brain. And I've got a brain that's all about famous naturalists and rainforest research and the environment and ecosystems and so forth. But I'm just specifically looking to turn in, a document or share a document with a couple of thoughts. This is the last question that recently came up. I've got just a few of these thoughts that I want to include in a new document. And not just the thought name. You saw that I can export just an outline of selected thoughts. In this case, I want the notes as well. So I'm going to hit Control click on famous naturalists. And let's bring in, I'll say Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall. So of course, I could make a giant selection of thoughts, but for the essence of time, we'll just select a few and I'll right click and I'm going to scroll down to create document. So what type of document do I want to create? A PDF, HTML, text, or what have you. I'm just going to create a PDF document from this content. And I get a nice little preview over on the side. My images are going to come in. I've got some outstanding, documentation on these naturalists. Great. I'll save that and save it to, do I want to replace it? No, we'll just call this 1111. Save, and that saved over to, I believe that was my desktop, but it's going to launch automatically for me anyhow. So here is my PDF with all of my note content and each one of those individual artists. There was also an option where every thought becomes a new page. So it would have broken away from one individual to the next to start a new page. So there's a lot of options that you can play around with there for exporting your brain to other formats. And then finally, you can also export your entire brain database to another format. You want a file and folder directory of all of the data and hard work that you've put into the brain. You want to back that up in a folder, in a zip file. You can certainly do that. So I can just say file, export, or you could make a selection and export just a selection of thoughts to a file folder directory. Every thought becomes a folder, and notes and file attachments are attachments within those folders. Again, a text outline, and you can even export to a JSON. This is sort of a Brain 303 category.
It's a
Exporting
good
to
point, though,
JSON.
Matt. I was just
Yeah,
gonna mention, because
yeah.
a lot of people, there's a myth floating out there that like you can't take your information out of the brain. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to, but you absolutely can. There's many ways to do it, like just export it as files and folders or change it to HTML. So anyway, these are, as you say, Matt, this is like 303, exporting out, importing in, but
Yeah.
you can import in as XML, you can export out, and there are many ways in terms of transitioning data if that's kind of what you need to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's some great documentation on, like Shelley mentioned, the XML. We've got a document on that. If you want to know more about, we could share that with you. Even the JSON, we don't, the JSON export, what you do with it from there is completely up to you. Like we said, that's a 303. There's also an API available for the brain. So if you have that skill set and knowledge for JSON directories and databases and API work, there's a lot that can be done with the brain with those features as well. And Shelley, that's everything that I wanted to cover today. We covered quite a bit of ground. Do we have any additional questions
Oh
that?
yeah, we've
Yep.
got a lot of different questions, and we are on the hour, but we're going to go and we're going into overtime in terms of Q&A. There's so many great questions for those of you that do have to leave on the hour. I do want to let you know this is a recorded event, so you will get a link to the recording. And some of you also mentioned other events, other webinars. We also have the Brain 101s, which are kind of like this, but geared more to a beginner who is just starting their brain, and a lot more time to demo live questions. So if you feel like you've missed stuff, or we're jumping ahead of you in a 202 class, sign up for the Brain 101. I believe there's one next Friday. Is that correct, Matt?
It's tomorrow. I
Oh,
changed
tomorrow.
it
Oh,
so that we would,
excellent. So
yeah,
we can have a spillover. Okay,
yeah.
excellent. So we're going to continue on Q&A, but I highly encourage anyone who's just getting started or wants to dive deeper and see their questions demoed live to join Matt tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific for Brain 101. And I want to circle back to a few questions. One came in earlier from Lewis about maximizing the utility of notes through backlink and mentions, because spent a lot of time on fine-tuning and editing brains in terms of the thoughts and the navigation. But now let's turn a little bit to notes, covering backlinks, mentions, and maybe even how to set up some styles in your brain, because part of editing and fine-tuning your brain is fine-tuning those notes as well.
Yes. So backlinks and mentions are just a really, really great feature, especially in, the longer you use the Brain application. So Shelley and I have created our Brain databases and been using them since the Brain 1.0. There's a lot of data in there. And when I create a thought, my brain will remind me if that thought already exists. And I can even type that into a note. So let's say I'm taking a note about, and I do not know Sylvia, but let's say Sylvia had dinner with John Muir. Notice that it underlined John Muir in blue. That's not a misspelling. A misspelling is in my color coding, my
Red.
setup is red. That is the brain telling me, my organic brain, hey, you've got some data on this particular topic, whatever it is. I'll be typing in a note, something gets underlined in blue, and sometimes I'm shocked, like, what? I already have data on that? And sure enough, I do, and I don't have to relearn it. It's there, it's preserved. I never delete. That's another one of the reasons why I never delete data out of my brain. I'll always move it to an archived area, what have you. And sure enough, I'll type something in. Oh my goodness, John Muir is already in this brain. It's pretty obvious he's right here in the same cluster. But I can right click. I can create a permanent link to John Muir, or I can simply activate it. So I might have a long list of all the people that influence this person, or a long list of products that they've created. And I've got other areas of this brain with that info, and I can activate it and get over to that thought in my brain very easily. Also, now notice at the very bottom of John Muir is wherever John Muir is showing up in another thought. So I might not have noticed it in my note, or maybe I had AI generate my note for me. I create a lot of content in my brain. I let AI sometimes create data for me, and I'll be on a thought and notice that another thought's name is being referenced, and it's because the AI typed that information in, and it's a backlink. So on the Sylvia thought, I can see that she once famously had dinner with John Muir that influenced her to follow her dreams and passions or what have you. I don't think any of that's true. I'm making that up, but nonetheless, I can get back and forth to those individual thoughts right there from the backlinks and mentions. So a really, really great feature to utilize. And Shelley, you mentioned customizing the notes, correct?
Yeah, note setting up a note style
Yeah.
and kind of fine tuning, or in terms of, we talked a little bit, I showed a little bit also about lots of compliments on your wallpapers as well, how to change wallpapers and themes, but also not only in the Plex, but in the notes as
The notes
well.
as well. There's a little, I like to call him the Pringles man. I've heard him called the Monopoly man, but you can see there's a little hat and mustache there. It's the notes style. And there's a lot that you can do here to really customize the note to fit your personality. Typically, when I'm not demoing, actually, I'm one of those folks that like to run everything in dark mode. You may have saw my note from another app I pulled up. It was black background with white text. That's kind of what works for me. So I can,
Nice.
there's pre-built
Mm-hmm.
styles that you
Ooh,
can really find a style that you like. And if you like this, but you just want a simple tweak, maybe the text is a little light blue for you, you want it to be in yellow, whatever you'd like. So you can really customize, and it's a universal change to that entire brain database. Every thought, if I go over to Jane Goodall, she's going to have that same color code. So you can really create a color code that best fits, your personality or your needs. And obviously the sizing is adjustable. If I were not wearing my glasses right now, my brain would look like this. So I can actually use the brain without my glasses with the scaling. Now I have a hard time finding the button. There it is.
oh,
But there we go. So
all good.
that's the only way I can use the brain without my without the readers. So
Nice.
highly, highly adjustable to fit your needs. And actually, Shelley, I just noticed there was one other question that came up that I don't want to miss. While I'm here, let's say I am very interested in the writings of Jane Goodall. In another brain that I'm creating on a different topic. Rather
Yeah, we
than,
want to cover merging and also copying between brains. Yes,
yes,
Lauren had the
yeah.
question about merging and actually printing selections, but
Yeah. So
go ahead.
obviously I can right click and I can just copy this thought and paste it in another brain. But what if this brain has content underneath? Here's John Muir. So now I've got a whole data structure underneath with file attachments and so forth. I don't want to copy the whole thing over to this other brain. I just want to say, hey, there's information in a different brain from my prime brain, my sort of default brain. One of my smaller topic specific brains has data about John Muir. I'm going to right click and I am going to copy the local thought URL. The web thought URL is the online version. If you're syncing your brain to the cloud, you can get to the web thought URL. If you make your brain publicly accessible, you can share that web thought URL with the world and they'll all enter your brain. They'll have access to the whole brain, but they'll enter from the specific thought that you send them. In this scenario, I'm just jumping around between brains on my own desktop. So I'm going to say copy local thought URL. And no, I'll go back to my digital thinking space, brain, and under hobbies, I think I had a thought for reading. And there it is. So I'll go to my reading thought, and I'm going to read some books, authors. I'll paste the web link. So I right click and you select paste web link is what it appears as. But as you can see, it takes me to John Muir. And I'm even going to close my Rainforest Research Brain and click on John Muir and click the attachment. Anytime you click on an attachment on a thought, it follows a very simple rule. It opens that content, that data in your system's default application. Word document's going to open Word. A web page is going to open in my default browser, Chrome. This is a brain link, so it's going to open in the Brain 14 and not just open the brain, but take me directly to the John Muir thought. So now you can create, I think the person that had the question was talking about having a sort of prime brain, a default brain that they go to. Yes, you can have your prime and then subsidiaries, thoughts on topic specific brains can be linked into that brain. And I can even go back into my subsidiary brain, my smaller brain, and link back to this thought like, oh, that's, that this thought could be linked to my prime brain and another brain and another database, excuse me. So you can link brains. And as we've seen, we can also merge brains. Again, the merge brain is file and import, and you're going to import a BRZ. If you want to merge the entire brain, if you want to merge just a section of a brain into another brain, then we get right back into that control clicking. And we just simply need to copy those thoughts.
Yeah, copying thoughts.
Copy
And that's
9 thoughts and
actually
paste them in.
great for you to know for our templates, because a lot of times you can download on our applications page on the website. You might look at a brain. You may not want to use all those thoughts, but you can just copy. And the copy, once you hit copy thoughts, you can then open that other brain and paste. So copy and thoughts, and that'll get all the thought types as well as the attachments and all the attributes too. So that's kind of a nice way to also move different thought typologies that you've set up as well.
That's right. Yeah.
And then kind of getting back to that, a couple more questions. Tom had a question earlier on, and I think it's worth talking about because it comes up a lot, the difference between thought types and tags. So both very important ways to classify information beyond the parent-child structure of your brain. But one of the things that's nice about a thought type is that becomes sort of the pervasive type of a thought where you get to change the color and the icon, and you can only have one type per thought. And a tag is something that's a little bit more frivolous, I guess I can use, but let's just say not as concerted. It's not quite as primary, where you can have multiple tags per thought. So I guess, Matt, if you have any just examples to, again, just illustrate that difference between what an information type is, a thought type versus a thought tag, that also popped up a few times.
Yeah. I like to think of, that's a good way of explaining. I like how you said it, like it's a little bit just more frivolous. I usually call it like an attribute. It's a smaller attribute of a thought. Whereas the thought type, those are for tags. The thought type is a major classification. So music lessons, that falls under the category of music. Maybe someday I'll have a category in this brain of education, and I want to change it. You can only have one thought type assigned to a thought. You can have multiple tags. So music lesson, my tags might be, I've got let's say I'm a pianist and I've got a concert coming up at the end of the year and I haven't been practicing. So I'm going to tag this as it is urgent that I get myself some lessons. I've committed to doing this concert. It's urgent. I want the best teacher possible. It's going to be high cost. And I want to do this while I'm visiting Japan. So whatever the case may be, you can have those multiple different tags of different, and it's hard to tell people like, this is what a tag should be. It's whatever you the types of data that you're putting together. I've seen many different people's brain databases that they've shared with me, and the tags are as unique as their thumbprints. There's always going to be something interesting how they classify and specify components or attributes of the information that they're collecting.
And GTD popped up, and a lot of people use the tags for GTD sort of in
Yes.
terms of most urgent task, Friday tasks. So we don't have time to get into GTD, but
Yeah.
that tags are a great use for GTD.
Yeah.
And something we can cover on a future event as well. And then another question that popped up a couple times from Roland and somebody else, just showing the drag and connect feature. And somebody asked if we have to hold down anything to move a thought.
Oh, that's a
You
good one.
don't. You can simply, like, if Matt wanted to move the Beatles under music lessons, all he has to do is drag. It was under hobbies there.
Uh,
At the top, yeah, or any thought really, and then drag it under just by dragging, like literally dragging. There's no extra button that needs to be pushed. And Roland had a question about, he wanted to link his photography club under hobbies. So that would be an example where you could link and unlink, or you could drag. So
yeah.
these are just little changes where if you got a thought under one area of the brain, you just want to move it somewhere else, feel free to drag it. You can also link and unlink as well.
Yeah. And also, this is something that I want to share with you. Let's say photography. Let's say I had another category here for art. Now, I can't click and drag photography as the active thought underneath art. I could make art a parent thought up above. Then it's going to have two categories, hobbies and art. And I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. If I hit Control Z, it undoes that change. This is a special little trick. It's called the exclusive parent trick, and it's simply done with the Shift key. If I click and drag art up above photography, but I don't just release my mouse button, I hold down Shift and then release. Oh, did I miss it? 1 second. I better try that again. Here, Control Z. Let's do it this way. I'm going to click and I'll type in art, and I'll hit Shift and double click the existing art. There we go. So by holding down Shift, it becomes the exclusive parent. So if one thought has multiple parent thoughts, so martial arts is an art, but it's also under hobbies. And let's say it's under lessons, music lessons for whatever reason. But I'm only interested in martial art photography. So once again, I click and type in photography. There it is. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and I double click on photography. It loses all the other parents and only becomes a child thought of photography. So that's one exception to the rule. Do you have to hold a button down when you're dragging a thought around the active thought? No, you don't. But if you do, the Shift key is an option for you.
Great. And we have this might be a huge question, so I'll let you decide, and maybe our final question, how much or how little we dive into this. But Lisa and a few others had some questions about AI. First, she wanted to know which AI model we utilize for our company. So we use ChatGPT. So far, we found that to be the best. We're not necessarily tied to that. It just seemed to be where the kind of one of the leaders. So that's what we're utilizing. Maybe that'll change in the future, but that's what we utilize, and it is a free service. You don't have to pay for it when you buy your license of TheBrain. In terms of the AI, it can generate thoughts, it can generate notes, and AI is absolutely wonderful for creating new thought structures. And actually, a great, I don't know if we want to create something quickly with AI or not, but AI is a great time to apply these mass selections and deletions principles, because a lot of times when I utilize AI, 80% of the stuff I will keep because I like it, but then I have to mass delete like about 4 or 5 thoughts that are maybe a bit redundant. You might want to just take a new brain and call it Scratchpad and play
Mhm.
with AI and also play with some of these mass editing features that we've shown today just to have fun and just to kind of see the power of these two things working together.
Wow, this went all the way from early cameras to smartphone cameras. So yeah, you never know what you're going to get.
Matt, can
In
you
this
just
case,
show us
yeah,
again sorry, because I was
sure.
where you went up to get the AI
Yeah,
just for
I
some
was
of the
on a thought
newbies?
called History of
Three?
Photography.
Okay.
And notice everything is highlighted in green right now because I have not accepted these changes. That's one of the great things about our AI integration. You know, you're welcoming this entity into creating data in your digital brain. So it didn't come directly from your brain. So we give you the chance, as Shelley mentioned, to review that content. So I can click around and delete individual thoughts, or if I don't like the whole thing, just discard it. In this case, I'll accept it. But to get here, I just started with a thought called History of Photography. And I click on AI, and you get many different options. You can set a context thought, so 3 generations above, History of Photography in Europe, like if this falls under a thought called European photography or something of that nature. Creativity level, if you want just factual information or do you want AI to really think out of the box 100%. You can generate just a cluster of child thoughts or a multi-tiered structure of thoughts. We've had entire brain webinars on just our AI integration, going over these in detail. You can find those recordings on our website, but it's just a fantastic way. And you can actually create a brain on a topic that you know very little about and create a very intelligent, structured, educational brain to help you learn how all these different parts fit together. And seeing that hierarchy, it goes just beyond asking ChatGPT a question like, what is the history of photography? You get a nice little paragraph, but here I can get a nice range of different topics. And if I find a thought that I really like, early cameras, I have no idea what the camera obscura is. Let's have AI create a note. So I click on note, generate a note. Again, I've got some scalability features for my note. I'll go ahead and just generate that with the default settings. And I'm not typing this. I don't type that fast. This is AI doing its thing, and it's still going. So we get a really nice overview of this topic. Again, I can accept, redo, or discard. I'll accept those. And even from here, we can click on AI. I can select a paragraph and say, expand a little bit on this paragraph. Or if I've got a note that I started jotting a few bullets down, I can say, hey, autocomplete this as a note on this topic. There's just really a lot that you can do with the AI integration into the brain. And without spending a new hour dedicated to AI, I think I'll stop there
Yeah,
unless
no,
there's a,
that's
okay.
fine. Just kind of a little, just the final segment, and it popped up a few times in Q&A. But I think
Mhm.
with that, we are actually going to end our session. We definitely a 202 class. We covered a lot of ground. Stay tuned for future. We're going to set up our schedule for August and September. We always have one big webinar event. And then we have the 101 classes every second Friday. There's one tomorrow. So
Yes.
if you want to dive further into starting a new brain with AI on our 101 class, we do cover that tomorrow. Feel free to join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. And with that, I think we're going to close our session. Matt, any final words of wisdom before we end our 202 class today?
Just want to thank everyone for joining today. Again, we're always available to answer any questions you have, support@thebrain.com. But again, just to reiterate, if anything today was over your head a little bit, this is the first introduction you've seen into the brain. Join me for a brain 101 class tomorrow. And just in 15 to 20 minutes, I'll show you how you can get started with a really substantial brain that you can continue to build on over time. And then when the time comes to clean it up, you can rewatch a brain 202.
Right. And real quick, Lauren was asking somebody else, where do you click to get to AI? So just if you just want to show them, it's right next to the font button. the AI button is right there. So it's going to grab whatever thought you're on. And AI is also embedded in notes. And we do have some
Yeah.
very great AI tutorials as well on our tutorial page. And so feel free to reach out to our support reps and our online resources to kind of learn more about AI. And with that, we're going to end our live session today. And we look forward to continuing our dialogue with all users and learning about all your brains and how you're using some of the new features that we covered today. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.